Okay, in our last video we finished up our wiring harness, and this time around I'm going to build a little engine stand out of stuff I got laying around. I gathered up all of the scrap pieces I could find and some little pieces of leftover plate and part of an old engine stand and some other random square tubing. And I got an extra one of these car dollies. Should be strong enough wheels to hold the weight of a motor if it holds, you know, a quarter of the car. So what I think I'm going to do here is, in the back I'm going to drill 2 holes onto a piece of plate, and up through here I'll stick an angle iron, and once I got that bolted on, I'll tack weld it to it, and it'll go down here on this. A couple angle irons going out and past, and a couple angle irons coming up for the radiator. And I got some like 1 1/4 pipe, and I found these old motor mounts where the holes came close to lining up. So we can bolt it there and angle our pipe, run it down. That'll hold the front of the motor. So I got a lot of cutting and drilling to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on all this. Okay, I've got my plates drilled out and I'm just testing them out on this other block. So now we can come in here with this angle iron and weld it up on both sides. I may have to notch the angle just a little bit for the starter. Otherwise I could just put the angle straight on there, but the starter's in the way. So I figure I'd do the same on both sides. Weld a bead inside and out. I think it should be really strong. So now that we got those pieces made, we can start cutting out some angle. Okay, now that I got my brackets made, I cut out some uprights. It'll go about like so, and little brackets will weld onto them. And I measured from the back of the motor up to about here, and it's about 3 feet. So I chop this angle off here, another 3 feet, then I can have some uprights coming to mount the radiator on. So we'll go ahead and get those chopped up, and I'm going to use this piece of pipe to weld onto my brackets to go up here to the front motor mount holes. I don't know if you can kind of see that, it's a little dark in there, but kind of get the idea. That pipe will come down, weld over here somewhere, and come up at an angle, and it'll hold the front. I may put some bracing in between somewhere, or some gussets, just to make it a little stronger. So I'm going to do a little more chopping, and then we can start welding. Okay, I got my angle chopped up and got it squared up, so I'm going to go ahead and start tacking this together, weld it up really good. Okay, I got my cross member piece on here. I'm going to go ahead and get this welded up solid all the way around, and then we can move on to putting the engine on the hoist and start fitting it up. Okay, I got the motor off the engine stand, and I used a strap to kind of level it as much as possible, and got the frame set under there. But one more thing I want to do before I start welding the engine mounts to the frame is I want to get these, make little brackets here, drill a hole so I can put my wheels on it. I ain't gonna mount the wheels yet, but I want to have them on there. Probably put that there, front of the motor, back of the motor. I don't think radiator's gonna need much support, and that way I'll have those all welded on. I can set it flat on the floor, bring my angle irons down, tack weld them really good, lift the motor back off, weld them up solid, that sort of thing. So I'm gonna make these little brackets first, 4 of them, and that way once I get going on it, I don't have to, you know, take it off again to mount these up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start fabricating some brackets. Okay, I used an even bigger drill bit, and the hole still ain't big enough, so it's gonna be extra large. Okay, now it will fit, finally. Okay, we'll get the rest of these drilled out and we'll be good to go. Okay, got all 4 of my wheel brackets done, and today is Sunday evening. It's getting kind of late, but it's Thanksgiving week this week, so I think I'll be able to come in on a long weekend and get this project finished up. So it's only going to be a couple of seconds for you, but we'll see y'all next weekend. Okay, we took a half a day off before the holidays, so I got a little bit of time to try to do a little bit more on my little engine stand. I got the wheel brackets all welded up, and I did some fitting on my uprights here, and also over here did some little bit of fitting on the front bracket. Gotta go ahead and start tacking some of this stuff in so I can take the motor off and then weld it up solid. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and start tacking this up. Okay, gotta get my slot cut in here for my piece of flat bar. Okay, see if it's gonna fit. A little bit wider. Okay, I think that's gonna work. Okay, I got the weight on it and all my little braces tacked in place, and so far it hasn't collapsed, so maybe this will work. So I think what I'm going to do is take a little bit of the weight off of it and lift it up just a little bit and see if we can get this unbolted. Hopefully it doesn't spring too much. We'll see if we can get up in here. Okay, these lower bolts have to get with the little ratchet. And see if we can. That doesn't look like it's sprung too much. Maybe it'll line up after we weld it. We will see. Okay. Yeah, that one, well, I think it's just sprung a little bit. Maybe we'll have to slot the holes out a little bit. All right, now we can get this lifted up off of here. Starter is gonna kind of catch, but I think we can pull the frame back just a little bit. There we go. All right, get this lifted up off of here, and then we can do all the rest of our welding. Okay, now that I got the motor off, I think I'm gonna have a little time tomorrow, so I'll go ahead and weld all these up. And it'll be a lot easier when I can do it out of position and lay it flat. I'll run a decent bead. It's kind of hard when you're upside down and there's hardly no room. So we'll get this welded up sometime tomorrow, and then we can work on the uprights for the radiator. So see you all tomorrow. Okay, it's the next morning, and let's see if we can get some welding done. Got a lot of stuff up in here that we couldn't get to, so I'm gonna fire up the welder and see if we can get this welded up solid. Alrighty, we got everything welded up solid, and also I cut out a little angle iron pieces for a battery tray, and I'm gonna put uprights, and that's gonna be the control panel. We'll cut a piece out of that and mount the computer on there, fuse box and whatnot. Got the pieces cut out for my radiator mount. I got to mark the holes and drill them. I think I'll bolt it to the radiator, then stand it up and tack weld it. So, I'm gonna go ahead and start drilling on this. Okay, I got my uprights bolted to my radiator, and while I got some help, I'm going to go ahead and tack this in place. Okay, I got my radiator support all welded up, but it was really wobbly, so I found this little 1/2-inch square tubing and smashed one in and welded it here and did a angle cut there and welded it up, and it's real sturdy now. So I think now I can go ahead and weld up my little battery tray. Finished up the battery tray, and I put a little brace so it's just not out here vibrating. So now I can go ahead and put my uprights for the control panel. It'll go like so and be up about waist high, and I'll mount that piece of aluminum on there to where I can mount the computer and fuse box and whatnot. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting out some pieces so we can get that done. Okay, I got my uprights welded in, and what I want to do is come down here and cut a V-cut and kind of angle it in just a little bit so it's not straight up and down. It'll make it a little more aerodynamic. So I'll go ahead and notch these, bend them over, and weld them up. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. Well, I've got my uprights for my control panel here, and I put this little brace in between, but it's really warbly, so I had to set the motor back on there because I wasn't sure where my brace needed to be so it didn't interfere with the exhaust. So I'm thinking down about like so, and that should sturdy that up. So I'm gonna cut a piece out and weld it on there, take the wobble out of it. Okay, got my brace in there and it sturdied it up quite a bit. Still a little bit warbly, but I think it'll work. So now we just need to figure out what needs to go on our sheet of aluminum here so we can kind of cut it down to size. Want to set the computer and fuse box on it and do a little measuring. Drill some holes and bolt it up here. And that way we can stand here and crank it up. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little measuring. Okay, this is what I come up with as far as mounting everything on the panel. I drilled through the PCM and I got these bolts going through and got these little pieces of angle iron. I'm going to clamp this, take it out, weld it up, then we'll drill a couple holes, set it over here, drill through, then weld on some bolts so we can reach around and just put nuts on them. And that will work for the computer. As far as the fuse box, I'm just going to set this that I had everything mounted on before and just drill out the holes and mount everything directly on here. So that leaves us a little bit of room over here for an ignition switch. So I'm going to go ahead and get this welded up and drilled out and see if we can get this mounted. Okay, I got them welded together and I got it clamped down where I want it. So now we can just simply drill through and we know we're going to line up. Okay, got a couple of bolts and some nuts to hold them in place. I'll go ahead and put some tacks on these and there you go. We got mounting studs. Of course it'll sit flush without the nuts in the way. So we're going to get these tacked up. Okay, got my studs welded on and the computer will sit over here, and I measured the edge of the computer comes here, so I can go ahead and drill out all of the fuse box holes. Okay, that should leave us plenty of room over here for ignition switch, which reminds me I've got to get one or find one. So now I think our panel is almost complete other than our switch. Okay, it's the next day, and last night before I left I painted up my bracket for the computer. And we got an ignition switch, just kind of a generic one. And also, my aluminum plate came in, so I can make my adapter for the throttle body. We'll use this gasket for a template. And some of my fuel system stuff came in. Got some AN hose, and I got a fitting on there. And a whole bunch of different fittings. And got a fuel pressure regulator with the gauge and some fittings, and got the little fittings for the fuel pump. This is a $34 fuel pump on eBay. I hope it works. Well, I tested it. It makes noise. We'll see if it pumps fuel. So but for right now I want to go ahead and get a step drill and drill a hole over here or the ignition switch. Go about right there, and then we can go ahead and pull the motor off and paint the whole frame up so it don't rust. And I think in our next video we'll wire it up to the starter and the alternator so the motor will charge the battery as it's running. So but for right now, I'm going to get a few things on here and test mount them and make sure everything's going to line up. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Man, that's dull. Okay, we'll try a different one. I need some of these step drills. Okay, I'm getting anywhere close. Nope, got a ways to go. Okay. There we go. All right. Let's see. Gonna have to clean off the back. Yeah, it just mushroomed everything out of here. Alright, let's get that cleaned up. Okay. Alright, get that tightened down, and we got an ignition switch. Cool. Okay, let's see if we can get this little bracket mounted in here. It's a little tight up in here. Let's find the hole. There we go. And this side. And I'm using nylock nuts because we don't want to try to tighten down. We might break this, so the nylock nuts will keep it from vibrating off. So it should be good to go with these. Now get a wrench up in here and hold one side. Okay, that should hold that. All right. Okay, I like that. It should mount it firmly on our stand. So now let's get some nuts and bolt it up to the control panel. Okay. Now, this should fit either way, up or down, whichever way is more convenient for the wiring harness. But, just put a couple nuts on here. Let's take a look and see how it looks. Okay, I think that'll work. Well, I think this is where I'm going to end this video. We got the stand all done. Next video, we're going to go ahead and mount up our wiring harness and everything after we paint the frame, and wire in our wires to the ignition, down to the battery, run some cables over to the starter, ground wire, and so the relays will turn on. We can test it and crank it over by the key and get our adapter plate made, and pretty soon we'll be able to fire this motor up right here on the stand. So appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see y'all next time.